12-year-old Isaiah sat in his usual spot, tucked away in the corner of the Harrison Community Center's main hall. His white cane rested against the worn wooden chair beside him, and his fingers drummed softly against his thighs. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another kid waiting for his mom to finish work. But something was different about Isaiah. While other children might have been glued to their phones or fidgeting with boredom, he sat perfectly still, his head tilted slightly to the left, listening. The old upright piano in the center of the hall had become his entire world. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, Mrs. Chen from down the street came into practice for her church services. Isaiah had memorized every hymn, every mistake she made, every correction she repeated until her fingers got it right. On Wednesdays, a college student named Tyler showed up, working through jazz standards with sheet music spread across the piano bench. Isaiah could hear the pages turning, could sense Tyler's frustration when his left hand couldn't quite keep up with the rhythm his right hand had already mastered. His mother, Diana, had worked as a custodian at the community center for 6 years now. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills, and more importantly, it let her bring Isaiah along after school. She couldn't afford childcare, and leaving a blind 12-year-old home alone wasn't an option she was willing to consider, so Isaiah came with her day after day, finding magic in the one instrument that seemed to speak directly to his soul. "Baby, I'm going to clean the upstairs offices," Diana called out, pushing her cleaning cart past him. "You okay down here?" "I'm good, Mama," Isaiah replied, his lips curving into a small smile. He could already hear someone setting up equipment on the stage. Metal stands scraped against the floor, microphone cables uncoiled with that distinct swishing sound. Someone was tuning the piano, adjusting the bench height. What Isaiah didn't know was that today wasn't going to be like every other day. Vincent Moreau, one of the most celebrated classical pianists in the world, had agreed to perform at a charity fundraiser at the Harrison Community Center. It wasn't his usual venue. Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House, Royal Albert Hall, those were the stages where Vincent typically performed. But his manager had convinced him that giving back to smaller communities was good for his image. Plus, the cause was genuine, raising money for music education programs in underfunded schools. Vincent arrived 3 hours early for soundcheck, as he always did. He was particular about acoustics, about the feel of each piano, about the way sound traveled through different spaces. His assistant rushed around with a clipboard, coordinating with the event staff, while Vincent sat at the community center's surprisingly decent grand piano and began to play. He started with scales to warm up his fingers, then moved into a Debussy prelude. The notes floated through the empty hall, delicate and precise. Vincent closed his eyes, letting muscle memory guide his hands across the keys. This was meditation for him, this moment before the chaos of performance when it was just him and the music. Then he noticed something odd. In the corner of the hall, barely visible in the dim afternoon light, was a young boy. The kid wasn't doing anything remarkable, just sitting there, but his fingers were moving, tapping against his legs in perfect rhythm with the Debussy piece Vincent was playing, not just the melody either. The boy's left hand was mimicking the bass line while his right hand followed the treble. Vincent stopped playing mid-phrase. The boy's fingers stopped too, hovering in the air for a moment before dropping back to his lap. Curious now, Vincent played a different piece, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, something more complex with intricate phrasing and dynamic shifts. He watched the boy from the corner of his eye. Sure enough, after just a few measures, those small hands started moving again, replicating every note, every rhythm, every subtle change in tempo. Vincent stood up from the piano bench and walked toward the corner. His assistant glanced up from her clipboard, confused about why he'd stopped rehearsing. "Hello there," Vincent said gently, approaching the boy. Isaiah's head turned toward the sound of Vincent's voice. His eyes didn't quite focus on where Vincent stood, and that's when Vincent noticed the white cane. "Hi," Isaiah responded quietly, a bit startled that someone had actually spoken to him. "I saw you listening. Well, I suppose I should say I noticed you." Vincent corrected himself, realizing his word choice might have been insensitive. "You were moving your fingers along with what I was playing." Isaiah's cheeks flushed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. I really like listening to the piano. You're not bothering me at all," Vincent assured him, crouching down to be at eye level with the boy, even though Isaiah couldn't see him. Something about this kid intrigued him. "What's your name?" "Isaiah. I'm Vincent." "Do you play piano, Isaiah?" The boy's expression shifted. Something between longing and sadness crossed his face. No, sir. I've never played. We don't have a piano and lessons they're expensive. My mama works really hard, but we can't afford stuff like that. But you know the music, Vincent said. It wasn't a question, Isaiah nodded. I listen to everyone who comes in to practice. Mrs. Chen plays hymns. Tyler does jazz. Sometimes the high school music teacher brings students here for extra practice. I listen and I can hear how the notes fit together. Like a puzzle, kind of. Vincent felt something stirring in his chest, that rare flutter of excitement he only experienced when discovering something truly special. The piece I was just playing, could you hear it clearly? Yes, sir. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. You played it beautifully. There was this one part around the middle section where you did this thing with the tempo, slowing down just a little before coming back. It was really pretty. Vincent blinked. This 12-year-old blind kid had just identified not only the piece but had picked up on one of Vincent's signature interpretive choices, something that music critics often mentioned in their reviews. Isaiah, Vincent said slowly, an idea forming in his mind. Would you like to try playing? Just for fun. The boy's face lit up, then immediately fell. I don't know how. I can't see the keys and I've never had anyone teach me where my hands are supposed to go. What if I helped you? Vincent offered. Just to see what happens. No pressure. Just for fun. Isaiah hesitated. He'd dreamed about this moment 1,000 times. Imagined what it would feel like to actually touch those keys instead of just hearing them from across the room. But dreams were safe. Reality could be disappointing. Okay, he whispered finally. Just for fun. Vincent helped Isaiah to his feet and guided him toward the stage. The boy's hands trembled slightly as Vincent positioned him on the piano bench. The grand piano suddenly seemed enormous, intimidating. Give me your hands, Vincent said softly. Isaiah extended his hands, and Vincent gently placed them on the keyboard. Positioning his fingers over middle C. Can you feel the keys? Vincent asked. Isaiah nodded, his fingertips exploring the smooth surface of the ivory keys, feeling the slight gap between each note, sensing the black keys that rose up slightly above the white ones. Now, Vincent said, I'm going to play something very simple and I want you to just listen. Don't try to play along yet. Just feel how the sound connects to the keys, okay? Okay. Vincent played a simple scale, C major, up and down. Then he took Isaiah's right hand and placed each finger on the correct keys, teaching him the basic 5-finger position. He played the scale again, this time pressing Isaiah's fingers down with his own, helping him feel the motion. Now you try, Vincent said. Stepping back, Isaiah's fingers shook as he pressed down on the first key. The note rang out clear and bright. He moved to the next key, then the next, slowly working his way up the scale. It was clumsy and hesitant, but he made it all the way up and back down without missing a note. Good, Vincent encouraged. Now, do you remember that Chopin piece I was playing earlier? Isaiah nodded. Do you think you could try playing just the first few notes? I'll help guide your hands to the right position. What happened next would be something Vincent Moreau would remember for the rest of his life. Isaiah placed his fingers on the keys, took a deep breath and began to play. The first few notes were tentative, searching. But then something shifted. His fingers found their confidence, found their rhythm. He played the opening phrase of Chopin's Nocturne, not perfectly, but with an understanding of the melody that shouldn't have been possible for someone who'd never touched a piano before. Vincent stood frozen, watching this blind 12-year-old boy play music he'd only heard once. Never seen written down, never had anyone teach him. The notes weren't all correct and the timing was rough, but the feeling was there. The emotion. The soul. By now, Vincent's assistant had stopped what she was doing. 2 of the event staff members had wandered closer to the stage. Diana, hearing piano music that wasn't the usual practicing, had come downstairs to investigate. She stopped at the entrance to the hall, her hand flying to her mouth when she saw her son sitting at that grand piano, his small hands moving across the keys like they'd always belonged there. Isaiah played for maybe 30 seconds before his fingers stumbled and he stopped, uncertain. The small group that had gathered stood in complete silence. Then Vincent Moreau, who had performed for presidents and royalty, Diana rushed toward the stage, her cleaning supplies forgotten. Isaiah, baby, what are you doing up there? Her son turned toward her voice, his face glowing with a mixture of joy and nervousness. Mama, this man, he let me try the piano. He said it was just for fun. Vincent stepped forward, extending his hand before realizing Diana might not see it as she climbed the stage steps. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Vincent Moreau. I'm the pianist performing here tonight. Your son has something very special. Diana looked between Vincent and Isaiah, protective instincts kicking in. She'd heard stories about people taking advantage of others, making promises they never kept. That's kind of you to say, but we should get out of your way. Isaiah, come on down from there. Please wait, Vincent said quickly. I know this seems strange. I'm asking you to give me 5 more minutes. Just 5 minutes to show you what I mean. Diana hesitated. There was something genuine in this man's eyes, something that made her pause. She'd spent 12 years protecting her son from a world that wasn't always kind to people who were different. But she'd also spent 12 years watching him light up every time he heard music, watching him tap out rhythms on every surface he could find, watching him dream about something they could never afford to give him. 5 minutes, she said firmly. Vincent nodded and turned back to Isaiah. Isaiah, I'm going to play something for you. I want you to just listen, really listen. Don't try to memorize it or anything like that. Just feel the music. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Vincent sat down beside Isaiah on the piano bench and began to play. He chose Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the first movement. It was a piece most people recognized, hauntingly beautiful and relatively simple in structure but rich with emotion. His fingers moved across the keys with practiced ease, filling the community center with music that seemed to make the air itself shimmer. Isaiah sat perfectly still, his head slightly tilted, his whole body focused on absorbing every note. Diana watched her son's face transform. She'd seen him happy before, but this was different. This was pure, complete peace. When Vincent finished, he let the last note fade into silence before speaking. Did you hear it? Every note, Isaiah whispered. Tell me about it. What did you hear? Isaiah's fingers moved in the air, tracing patterns only he could see. It starts very gentle, like someone walking alone at night. The right hand carries the melody, but it's the left hand that makes it sad. Those octaves, they're like footsteps, steady and heavy. And there's this one part where you did something different. You held the pedal just a little longer, let the notes blur together like a memory. Vincent felt goosebumps rise on his arms. This child was describing musical interpretation with the vocabulary of a trained musician, yet he'd never had a single lesson. Do you think you could try it? Vincent asked gently. Just the beginning. I'll help you find the right keys. Diana started to protest. Mr. Moreau, he's never played before. I don't want him to feel bad if he can't. Mama, Isaiah interrupted softly. Can I try? Please. She looked at her son's hopeful face and couldn't say no. Okay, baby. Go ahead. Vincent carefully positioned Isaiah's hands on the keyboard, showing him where the opening notes were located. The right hand starts here on this key. The left hand plays down here. Take your time. There's no rush. Isaiah's fingers found the keys Vincent had shown him. He pressed down and the first notes of the Moonlight Sonata filled the air. Tentative at first, feeling his way through the darkness, but then something remarkable happened. His right hand began to move with increasing confidence, finding the melody Vincent had played just moments before. His left hand searched for the bass notes, stumbling once, twice, then locking into the rhythm. Within seconds, Isaiah was playing the opening of one of classical music's most famous pieces, having heard it only once in his entire life. The small group that had gathered, Vincent's assistant, 2 event staff members, and Diana stood transfixed. Vincent himself felt his hands start to shake. He'd taught hundreds of students over the years, worked with prodigies at prestigious music schools, but he had never, not once, seen anything like this. Isaiah played for nearly a minute, his fingers navigating the keyboard like he'd been practicing for years. He made mistakes, hit wrong notes here and there, but the essence of the piece was there. The feeling, the emotion, the understanding of how the music should flow, it was all present in his playing. When he finally stopped, his hands trembling from the effort and emotion, Isaiah turned his face toward where he thought Vincent was sitting. Did I do okay? Vincent couldn't speak for a moment. He cleared his throat, trying to compose himself. Isaiah, that was... I don't have words. In 30 years of playing piano professionally, I've never seen anyone do what you just did. Really? Isaiah's voice was small, hopeful. Really? Vincent confirmed. He looked up at Diana, who had tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Thompson, Your son has what we call perfect pitch and an eidetic musical memory. That means he can hear a piece of music and understand it completely. The notes, the rhythm, the harmony, all of it. This kind of gift is extraordinarily rare. I'm talking about maybe one in tens of thousands of musicians. Diana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But what does that mean? We can't afford piano lessons. We can't even afford a piano for him to practice on. This is just going to break his heart. I understand your concern, Vincent said carefully. But gifts like this don't come along often. They need to be nurtured. With what money? Diana's voice cracked. She wasn't trying to be rude, but the reality of their situation was harsh. I work full-time just to keep a roof over our heads. His father isn't in the picture. Music lessons cost what we spend on groceries for a week. A piano? That's impossible. Vincent stood up, his mind racing. He thought about his own childhood, how his parents had scraped together money for his lessons, how one teacher had believed in him enough to reduce her rates so he could continue studying. He thought about all the opportunities he'd been given, all the doors that had opened because someone had taken a chance on him. What if I taught him? Vincent heard himself say. Everyone turned to stare at him. His assistant actually gasped. Vincent, you don't teach. You haven't taken a private student in over a decade. I know, Vincent said, not taking his eyes off Diana. But this is different. Diana shook her head slowly. Mr. Moreau, I appreciate the offer, but you're a famous musician. You perform all over the world. Even if you meant it, you'd be gone in a few days, and Isaiah would be left with hope for something that can't happen. You're right, Vincent admitted. I do travel constantly, but I also have a home in the city about 40 minutes from here. What if Isaiah came to my studio twice a week? I could work with him, teach him properly. No charge. This would be an honor for me. Mama? Isaiah's voice was barely a whisper. Can I? Diana looked at her son, then at Vincent, then back at her son. Every instinct told her this was too good to be true. People like them didn't get opportunities like this. Life had taught her to be suspicious of generous offers from wealthy strangers. But then she saw the expression on Vincent's face. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was something else entirely, recognition. Like he'd found something precious that he couldn't bear to let slip away. I need to think about it, Diana said finally. Of course, Vincent agreed. He pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card. This has my contact information. Take all the time you need. But Mrs. Thompson, please think seriously about this. Your son has a gift that could change his life. Vincent's assistant touched his arm, pointing at her watch. Vincent, we need to finish sound check. The doors open in 2 hours. Right, Vincent said, but he didn't move immediately. He looked at Isaiah one more time. Isaiah, no matter what your mother decides, I want you to know something. What you did today. That was real. That was extraordinary. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't make music. Thank you, sir, Isaiah said, his voice thick with emotion. Diana took her son's hand and helped him down from the stage. As they walked back to their corner, Isaiah couldn't stop smiling. He'd actually played a piano. He'd made music with his own hands, not just in his imagination. Vincent returned to the piano and tried to continue his rehearsal, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept glancing at the corner where Isaiah sat, watching the boy's fingers still moving in patterns, still playing music only he could hear. That evening's charity concert was flawless, as Vincent's performances always were. The audience gave him a standing ovation. Wealthy donors wrote generous checks. Everyone went home satisfied that they'd contributed to a good cause. But Vincent couldn't stop thinking about the blind 12-year-old boy who had played Beethoven after hearing it once. As he drove home that night, he made a decision. Whether Diana Thompson accepted his offer or not, he was going to find a way to help Isaiah. Some things were too important to let slip away. He just had no idea how much that decision would cost him. Diana didn't sleep that night. She sat at their small kitchen table, Vincent's business card in front of her, trying to figure out if this was a blessing or a setup for heartbreak. By 3 a.m, she'd made a list of all the reasons to say no and all the reasons to say yes. The no column was longer, but the yes column felt heavier. She called Vincent 2 days later. The lesson started the following week. Twice a week, Diana would drive Isaiah 40 minutes into the city, to Vincent's private studio in a beautiful historic building she'd only ever driven past before. The first few sessions were awkward. Vincent was used to teaching advanced students who already understood music theory. Isaiah didn't even know what a scale was called, though he could play one perfectly after hearing it once. But within a month, something beautiful started happening. Vincent learned to teach in a completely new way, and Isaiah absorbed everything like a sponge. They worked on technique, on understanding the structure behind the music Isaiah could already hear so perfectly. Vincent recorded their lessons so Isaiah could practice at home using an old keyboard Vincent had given them. Then someone posted a video online. One of the staff members from the community center had filmed Isaiah's first time playing that day with Vincent. She'd thought it was sweet, inspiring. She posted it on social media with the caption, "Blind kid plays piano like a pro after hearing it once." The video went viral. Within 3 days, it had been viewed 2 million times. Within a week, 10 million. People shared it everywhere, calling Isaiah a genius, a miracle, a gift from God. Local news stations started calling Diana's phone, which she'd never given anyone permission to share. Reporters showed up at the community center. Someone even found out where they lived and knocked on their apartment door at 7 in the morning. Most of the attention was positive. People were amazed, inspired, moved to tears by watching this young blind boy play piano with such natural ability. But not everyone was kind. "It's fake," read one comment with thousands of likes. "Nobody can play like that without training. This is obviously staged for views. The famous pianist probably helped him and they edited it to look impressive," said another. "I bet the kid's not even really blind. This is all a publicity stunt for that Vincent guy." The comments that hurt the most were the ones closer to home. At Isaiah's school, some kids started treating him differently. A few were supportive, asking him about the video, wanting to hear him play, but others weren't so nice. "Think you're special now?" one boy said in the hallway. "My cousin's been taking piano lessons for 6 years and you think you're better than her because of some stupid video? Must be nice getting free stuff from rich people," another kid muttered loud enough for Isaiah to hear. "Some of us actually have to work for things." The teachers didn't know how to handle it either. Some praised Isaiah excessively, making him feel like a circus act. Others seemed uncomfortable, like they thought he was showing off or getting attention he didn't deserve. His English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, actually said in class one day, "Remember, everyone, true talent comes from hard work and dedication, not just natural ability." Isaiah stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. He found a quiet corner in the library instead, where he could be alone with his thoughts. Diana noticed her son getting quieter. He still went to his lessons with Vincent, but the joy that had lit up his face those first few weeks was dimming. The breaking point came 3 weeks after the video went viral. A local news station did a segment on Isaiah. They meant well, presenting it as a feel-good story about overcoming obstacles. But the way they framed it made Diana's stomach turn. They kept emphasizing how poor they were, showing B-roll footage of their neighborhood, talking about Diana's humble job as a janitor. They made Vincent look like a white knight rescuing a poor, disabled child from poverty. The comment section under that news segment was brutal. "Why's this rich pianist getting all this praise for basic human decency? They're exploiting that kid for views. This is disgusting. So he's good at piano. Big deal. Plenty of kids have talent. Why does he get special treatment? I guarantee this Vincent guy is getting something out of this. Nobody does anything for free." Diana's sister, Aunt Rita, called after seeing the news segment. "Diana, baby, I'm worried about you. People are talking. Some folks at church are saying you're letting this man take advantage of Isaiah. They're saying you're putting your son out there for attention." "That's not what's happening," Diana said, her voice tight. "I know that," Rita said quickly. "But you know how people are. They see a single mother with a disabled child getting help from a wealthy white man, and they start making assumptions. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing." That night, Diana lay awake again, but this time for different reasons. Was she making a mistake? Was she pushing Isaiah into something that would hurt him in the long run? What if Vincent lost interest? What if this whole thing fell apart and Isaiah was left with dreams too big for their reality? The next morning, Isaiah refused to go to school. "I can't, Mama," he said, his voice small. "I just can't." "Baby, what happened?" Isaiah's hands gripped his blanket. "Everyone's watching me now. I can feel it. They whisper when I walk by. Some kids think I'm faking being blind. Others think I'm getting special treatment. And yesterday, someone told me I'm making other disabled kids look bad because I'm not disabled enough since I can play piano." Diana felt rage and heartbreak collide in her chest. "Isaiah, and maybe they're right, Mama. Maybe I'm not that special. Maybe it was just luck. That one time at the community center. Maybe I just got lucky and now everyone expects me to be some kind of genius and I'm not. I'm just me. You are special, Diana said firmly, pulling her son into her arms. Don't let anyone tell you different. But Isaiah pulled away. I don't want to go to my lesson with Mr. Moreau today. I don't want to play piano anymore. It's causing too many problems. Diana called Vincent to cancel the lesson. She tried to keep her voice steady as she explained that Isaiah needed a break, that maybe it was all too much too fast. Vincent listened quietly, then asked if he could come by to talk to Isaiah in person. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Diana said. I understand, Vincent replied, but please tell Isaiah something for me. Tell him that every truly great musician I've ever known has faced doubt and criticism. Tell him that the world isn't always ready for extraordinary things, but that doesn't make them less extraordinary. Diana promised to pass along the message, but she wondered if it would be enough. For 2 weeks, Isaiah didn't touch a piano. He went to school, came home, did his homework, and sat in silence. The keyboard Vincent had given them gathered dust in the corner of the living room. Diana would wake up in the middle of the night and find Isaiah sitting at the kitchen table, his fingers moving in the air, playing music only he could hear, but refusing to make it real. Vincent called several times. He sent encouraging text messages. He even mailed a handwritten letter, which Diana read aloud to Isaiah. But her son remained unmoved. I appreciate what Mr. Moreau tried to do, Isaiah said quietly one evening, but maybe this was never meant to happen. Maybe I'm supposed to just be a regular kid who likes music, not someone who plays it. Diana didn't know what to say. She couldn't force her son to play. She couldn't protect him from every cruel comment or jealous classmate. She couldn't make the world kinder or fairer. All she could do was sit with him in the silence where music used to be, and hope that someday, somehow, he'd find his way back to the piano. What Diana didn't know was that Vincent Moreau, sitting in his studio 300 miles away, had just made a decision that would change everything. He'd been thinking about it for days, weighing the costs, considering the consequences. It was risky, potentially career-damaging, and would shock everyone who knew him. But sometimes, Vincent thought as he picked up his phone to call his manager, the most important performances aren't the ones on stage. Sometimes they're the ones that happen in the quiet moments, when you choose to believe in someone even when they've stopped believing in themselves. He dialed the number and waited for his manager to pick up. Michael, Vincent said, I need you to cancel my next 3 concerts. Yes, all 3. I don't care what the venues say. And book me a flight to Georgia. Tomorrow, if possible. Vincent, have you lost your mind? Michael's voice was sharp with disbelief. Maybe, Vincent admitted, but I'm going anyway. Diana was folding laundry when someone knocked on their apartment door. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Isaiah was in his room, probably doing homework or just sitting in that heavy silence he'd been carrying for weeks. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door and froze. Vincent Moreau stood in the hallway of their building, looking completely out of place in his expensive coat and polished shoes. He held a paper bag in one hand and had the slightly lost expression of someone who wasn't used to navigating apartment complexes. Mr. Moreau, Diana said, too surprised to say anything else. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced, Vincent said quickly. I know this is your home and I should have called first. But I was worried that if I called you might tell me not to come. And I really needed to talk to Isaiah. Diana should have been angry. She should have told him this wasn't appropriate, that he couldn't just show up at their home. But there was something in his face, genuine concern, maybe even desperation, that made her step aside. He's in his room, she said quietly. But Mr. Moreau, he's not in a good place right now. I don't know if talking will help. I understand, Vincent said, but I have to try. Diana led him to Isaiah's small bedroom. Her son sat on his bed, his white cane propped against the wall, his fingers absently tracing patterns on his blanket. He heard the footsteps and turned his head. Mama? You have a visitor, baby, Diana said softly. Isaiah's expression shifted when he heard Vincent's voice say hello. Mr. Moreau? What are you doing here? I came to see you, Vincent said, settling into the desk chair near Isaiah's bed. I brought donuts, but I'm realizing now that might seem like I'm trying to bribe you, which wasn't my intention. Despite everything, Isaiah's lips twitched in an almost smile. What kind? Chocolate glazed and maple bacon? The guy at the shop said those were the best. He was right, Isaiah said. They sat in silence for a moment. Diana started to leave to give them privacy, but Vincent asked her to stay. You should hear this too, Mrs. Thompson. Vincent set the bag of donuts on the desk and leaned forward. Isaiah, I canceled 3 concerts to come here. Each one was worth about $50,000 to me personally, not counting what it might cost me professionally to break those contracts. Diana gasped. Mr. Moreau, you didn't have to. I did have to, Vincent interrupted gently, because I realized something. When I saw you playing at the community center that first day, Isaiah, I saw myself, not the successful version I am now, but the scared kid I used to be, the one who thought maybe he wasn't good enough, the one who almost quit before he really started. Isaiah's hand stilled on his blanket. You wanted to quit? Almost did, Vincent admitted. I was 14. I'd won a local competition and suddenly everyone had expectations. My teacher wanted me to compete nationally. My parents had sacrificed so much for my lessons. Other kids at school either worshipped me or hated me. One day I locked myself in my room and told my mother I was done with piano. That the pressure was too much. What changed your mind? Isaiah asked quietly. My teacher did something crazy. She entered me in a performance at a major concert hall without telling me. Just signed me up, paid the fee from her own pocket, and then informed me 3 weeks before the date. I was furious, terrified, certain I'd humiliate myself. Vincent paused, but she told me something I've never forgotten. She said, Vincent, talent is a gift, but what you do with it is a choice. You can let fear decide or you can let music decide, but hiding your gift doesn't make you humble. It just makes the world a quieter place. Isaiah was silent, processing this. I have an opportunity, Vincent continued. In 6 weeks, I'm scheduled to perform at Carnegie Hall in New York. It's one of the most prestigious venues in the world, and I want you to perform with me. Diana stood up abruptly. Mr. Moreau, that's impossible. Isaiah's barely been playing for 2 months. Carnegie Hall? That's where the best musicians in the world perform. Exactly, Vincent said, not taking his eyes off Isaiah. And Isaiah belongs there. I can't, Isaiah said, his voice barely a whisper. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. You're right, Vincent said. You're not ready. 6 weeks isn't enough time to properly prepare for a Carnegie Hall debut. But here's what I'm proposing. Not asking, proposing, because this has to be your choice. I want to work with you every single day for the next 6 weeks. Intensive training. We'll work on one piece, just one, until you can play it in your sleep. And on that stage, you won't be performing alone. I'll be right beside you at a second piano. We'll play together. What piece? Isaiah asked. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, Vincent said. It's one of the most beautiful and challenging pieces ever written. We'll arrange it for 2 pianos. I'll handle the orchestra parts on my piano and you'll play the solo parts on yours. Diana was shaking her head. This is too much. What if he makes a mistake? What if people criticize him? After everything that's happened with that video going viral, I can't put him through more of that. You're absolutely right to be concerned, Vincent said, looking at her now. The critics might be harsh. There will definitely be people who say he's too young, too inexperienced, that I'm exploiting him. All of that might happen. But here's what else might happen. Isaiah might discover that he's stronger than his fear. He might learn that the opinions of people who don't understand don't matter as much as the music itself. And he might inspire thousands of people who think their dreams are impossible. Why are you doing this? Diana asked, tears in her eyes. What do you get out of this? Vincent smiled sadly. The chance to give someone the opportunity I was given. The chance to see what happens when we believe in people instead of protecting them from failure. And honestly, the chance to remember why I fell in love with music in the first place. Teaching Isaiah these past weeks has reminded me that music isn't about perfection or fame. It's about connection. It's about saying things we don't have words for. Isaiah's voice cut through the tension. If I say yes and I mess up on that stage, everyone will see it. Everyone will know I failed. Yes, Vincent agreed. That's the risk. But Isaiah, let me tell you what I've learned in 30 years of performing. The performances where I played perfectly, I barely remember most of them. But the ones where I struggled, where I pushed through fear and doubt and still found the music, those are the ones that changed me. Those are the ones that mattered. The room fell silent except for the distant sound of traffic outside and a neighbor's television through the thin walls. Finally, Isaiah spoke. "Mama, what do you think?" Diana looked at her son, at this boy who'd been born too early, who'd come into the world fighting, who'd faced every challenge with quiet courage. She thought about all the times she'd protected him, all the times she'd said no to keep him safe. And she realized that maybe, just maybe, the most loving thing she could do was say yes to something terrifying. "I think," she said slowly, "that this is your decision, baby, not mine. I'll support whatever you choose." Isaiah sat with that for a long moment. His fingers moved across the blanket, playing chords only he could feel. Then he turned his face toward Vincent. "If I do this, I want to do it right. No pity, no inspirational blind kid story. I want to play as a musician. Period." "Agreed," Vincent said immediately. "And if I'm terrible, you tell me. Don't lie to make me feel better. I promise." "Okay," Isaiah said, his voice stronger now. "I'll do it." Vincent exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Okay, then we start tomorrow. And Isaiah, I want you to know this is going to be hard. Harder than anything you've done before. There will be days you hate me, hate the piano, hate Rachmaninoff, but I'll be with you every step." Over the next 6 weeks, Vincent kept his word. He moved into a hotel near their apartment and worked with Isaiah 6 days a week, 4 hours a day. They drilled technique. They worked on interpretation. They practiced the transitions 100 times, then 100 more. Diana watched her son transform. The joy came back to his face. The confidence rebuilt itself brick by brick. Vincent was demanding but never cruel, pushing Isaiah to his limits while making sure he knew he wasn't alone in the challenge. 3 weeks in, Vincent brought in a recording engineer to document their practice sessions. "For posterity," he said, "and also so we can hear what we sound like from the audience's perspective." 2 weeks before the performance, Vincent arranged for them to practice in an actual concert hall. Isaiah needed to understand the acoustics, the way sound traveled in a large space. The first time Isaiah heard his playing echo through that empty hall, he cried. "It's so beautiful," he whispered. "You're so beautiful," Vincent corrected. "The hall just lets everyone else hear what I've been hearing all along." 1 week before Carnegie Hall, Diana sat down with Isaiah after practice. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Isaiah admitted. "But also excited? Is that weird?" "No, baby," Diana said, pulling him close. "That's exactly how it should feel." The night before they left for New York, Isaiah couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, running through the piece in his mind, his fingers moving through the air. Tomorrow, he'd be on a plane for the first time in his life. The next day, he'd stand on one of the most famous stages in the world. He thought about everyone who'd said it was fake, who'd said HII, and then he thought about the music, about how it felt when his fingers found the right keys, about how Rachmaninoff's notes seemed to tell a story about struggle and triumph and beauty rising from difficulty. Tomorrow, he'd let the music speak for itself. Whatever happened after that, he'd be able to say he tried. Carnegie Hall was nothing like Isaiah had imagined. He'd pictured a building, a stage, some seats. But standing backstage, he could feel the weight of history in the air. Vincent told him that legends had performed here. Tchaikovsky, Bernstein, Horowitz. People who'd shaped the entire world of music had stood where Isaiah now stood, his hands trembling, his heart racing so fast he thought it might burst. "I can't do this," Isaiah whispered to his mother. They were in the dressing room, 40 minutes before showtime. "Mama, I can't. There are too many people out there. What if I forget everything? What if my hands freeze up?" Diana knelt in front of her son, taking his shaking hands in hers. "Baby, look at me." "Well, you know what I mean." She smiled softly. "Listen to me. You've practiced this piece so many times you could play it in your sleep. Mr. Moreau believes in you. I believe in you. But most importantly, you need to believe in you." "But what if—" "No more what ifs," Diana said firmly. "You've already done the hard part. You chose to try. Everything after that is just music." Vincent appeared in the doorway, already in his performance suit. "Isaiah, they're ready for us. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Isaiah admitted. "Good," Vincent said, and Isaiah could hear the smile in his voice. "That means you care. The day you stop being nervous is the day it stops mattering. Come on, let's go make some music." They walked through the backstage corridors and Isaiah could hear the murmur of the crowd through the walls. 2,800 people had filled Carnegie Hall that night. Some were Vincent's regular fans. Some were music critics. Some had heard about the blind 12-year-old prodigy and came out of curiosity or skepticism. A few had come hoping to see him fail. Vincent led Isaiah onto the stage and the murmuring died down. Isaiah could feel the lights warm on his face. He could sense the vastness of the space, the way sound would travel differently here than anywhere he'd practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vincent said into the microphone, his voice steady and clear, "tonight is special for me. A few months ago, I met a young man who reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. His name is Isaiah Thompson. He's 12 years old. He's blind, and he's one of the most naturally gifted musicians I've encountered in my entire career." Isaiah heard some scattered applause, but also some whispers. He knew what people were thinking. This was a gimmick, a publicity stunt, an inspirational story that would be more about overcoming obstacles than actual musicianship. "I know what some of you might be thinking," Vincent continued, as if reading Isaiah's mind. "But I'm not asking you to applaud his disability or his age or his circumstances. I'm asking you to listen to him as a musician. Period. Tonight we'll be performing an arrangement of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 for two pianos. I'll handle the orchestra parts and Isaiah will perform the solo. There's no safety net here, no backing track, no editing. Just two people and two pianos and one piece of music." Vincent guided Isaiah to the piano bench. Isaiah's hands found the keys, the familiar smooth surface grounding him. He took a deep breath and nodded to indicate he was ready. Vincent counted them in softly. 1, 2, 3. The first notes rang out from Vincent's piano, the rich, dark chords that opened the concerto. Isaiah waited, counting measures in his head, feeling the rhythm in his bones. And then it was time. His fingers came down on the keys. For the first 10 seconds, Isaiah was pure nerves. His fingers felt stiff, his timing just slightly off. He could hear it, could feel himself rushing. But then Vincent's playing seemed to wrap around him like a safety net, guiding him back into the rhythm. Isaiah's breathing steadied. His shoulders relaxed, and then the music took over. His fingers flew across the keys, navigating the complex runs and arpeggios that Rachmaninoff had written over a century ago. The melody sang out, heartbreaking and beautiful, telling a story of longing and hope and ultimate triumph. Isaiah wasn't thinking anymore about the audience or the critics or anyone who doubted him. He was inside the music now, living in each note, feeling the way the harmonies shifted and resolved. There was a tricky passage in the second movement, a place where Isaiah had stumbled during almost every rehearsal. As it approached, he felt a flutter of panic. His left hand missed a note, landing wrong. The discord rang out clearly in the perfect acoustics of Carnegie Hall. For a split second, Isaiah froze, but Vincent kept playing, steady as a heartbeat, and Isaiah heard his teacher's voice in his memory from one of their practice sessions. "When you make a mistake, don't stop. Don't apologize. Just find your way back to the music. The next note is always more important than the last one." Isaiah's fingers found the next note. And the next? Within 2 measures, he was back in the flow, the mistake already behind him. He played through the lyrical second movement, his touch growing more confident. By the third movement, with its thundering octaves and dramatic crescendos, Isaiah felt like he was flying. The final notes built to a powerful climax, both pianos ringing together in a triumphant finish. Isaiah's hands came down on the last chord with every ounce of strength he had. The sound filled the hall, then slowly faded into silence. For 3 full seconds there was no sound at all. Isaiah's heart sank. The silence felt like judgment, like confirmation of every fear he'd had. They hated it. He'd embarrassed himself and Vincent. Then the applause started. It began with a few people, then more. Then suddenly the entire hall erupted. But it wasn't just applause. People were standing, cheering, some of them crying. The sound was overwhelming, almost frightening in its intensity. Isaiah sat frozen at the piano, not quite believing what he was hearing. Vincent's hand found his shoulder and squeezed. "Stand up," Vincent said gently. "Take your bow." Vincent helped Isaiah to his feet and they bowed together. The applause grew louder. People were shouting, "Bravo!" Some were whistling. The ovation went on, wave after wave of appreciation that seemed like it would never end. Backstage later, a concert organizer told them the standing ovation had lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes of continuous applause at Carnegie Hall, something that happened maybe once in a generation. The reviews that came out the next day were extraordinary. The New York Times wrote, "Young Isaiah Thompson didn't just play Rachmaninoff, he understood it. His performance had the kind of emotional depth that can't be taught, only felt. Yes, he made mistakes, but those imperfections somehow made the music more human, more real." A famous classical music critic who'd been skeptical before the concert wrote, "I came expecting inspiration. I got art instead. This is the difference between a feel-good story and a genuine talent." Isaiah, though, he was being exploited, who'd said he wasn't special enough to deserve this chance. Thompson is the latter. But the moment that mattered most to Isaiah came 3 days after the performance. They were back home in Georgia, and Isaiah was sitting at the keyboard in their living room just playing for himself. The doorbell rang. It was Tyler, the college jazz student who used to practice at the community center. "Hey Isaiah, I saw your performance online. I just wanted to say, you inspired me to take my music more seriously. I'd kind of given up on the idea of being a professional musician, but watching you up there, pushing through even when you made that mistake in the second movement and kept going, it reminded me why I started playing in the first place." After Tyler left, Diana found Isaiah in his room, quiet but smiling. "You okay, baby?" "Yeah," Isaiah said. "I was just thinking Mr. Moreau was right. It's not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to try." Over the next year, Isaiah's life changed in ways both big and small. He received a full scholarship to a prestigious music academy. Vincent continued teaching him, but now other teachers wanted to work with him too. He performed at several more concerts, though none quite as dramatic as that first Carnegie Hall appearance. But the biggest change was in Isaiah himself. He walked taller now, more confident. He still faced challenges. People who reduced him to his disability. Critics who said he'd peaked too early. Classmates who were jealous of his success. But he'd learned something important on that Carnegie Hall stage. Courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about playing the next note anyway. Vincent often told the story of their first meeting to his students. "Talent is everywhere," he'd say. "In community centers and small towns and places we never think to look. Our job isn't to create it. It's just to recognize it and give it a chance to be heard." 5 years later, when Isaiah performed his first full solo concert at Carnegie Hall, Vincent sat in the audience rather than on stage. He watched his former student command that space with the authority of someone who belonged there, and he thought about that afternoon in the community center when he'd told a scared blind boy to play, just for fun. That moment had changed both their lives. It had reminded Vincent why music mattered, and it had shown Isaiah that the voice inside him that had always heard music, that voice was worth listening to. As Isaiah took his bow to another standing ovation, Vincent clapped until his hands hurt, grateful that he'd recognized something extraordinary when he'd heard it, and even more grateful that Isaiah had been brave enough to share it with the world. Because in the end, that's what music is. It's not about perfection or fame or proving anything to anyone. It's about finding something beautiful inside yourself and having the courage to let others hear it too. And sometimes, when you're lucky enough, it starts with someone telling you to play, just for fun.